It's time to talk feathers. Welcome back to Corky Gachas, and in this video I'm going to finally cover something that has been asked of me for very long, and that is a specific feathers guide and what is the optimal setup for each and every one of you. So in this video I'm going to cover that, but first when I go into my feathers I'm going to first tell you that this is not optimal feathers. In fact, this is just me trying to transition, so this is like an interim feathers, but I'm going to show you guys like the optimal ones when it comes to progression, right? So when I look at feathers, I think of it as a series of progression instead of thinking like free to play like spender versus spenders. Instead, I would say that the game itself is going to progress, right? From what I've seen in Taiwan server, the feathers are going to be more and more accessible. So the rarer feathers now are going to be more accessible. So if you think of it from a progression standpoint, it's going to be easier to understand. If you are a spender, you're a huge spender, you're a whale, definitely you can look at the end scale of the progression, right? Towards the optimal builds, so to speak. So first we are going to start with the first step of the progression, and I'm going to start first with the defense feather. So for people that don't know, there is the attack feather statues and there is also the defense feather statues, and each of them will allow you to put in different feathers, right? You can see all these are called defense feathers, so you can only put in defense feathers, but you can also put in mixed feathers, so you can put in mix in either the attack ones or in the defense one. That is up to you. However, I'm going to say that for this one, as a first step of progression, you're going to want to do this. So this is what I call the step 0. You're going to run Mercy, Virtual, Grace, Justice, as well as Knight. So this is the 4 purple 1 gold. In fact, I would say that this is going to last you for quite some time, and for most people, this is the generic build that you are going to go with, and the reason is very simple. In this game itself, farming is very important, which is why you want to also focus on the attack aspect, right? So the defense aspect isn't exactly the most important, which is why we slot in 2 of this cheaper mixed feathers. The Grace and the Justice are going to be very accessible. You can just pick it from the purple optional chest, and also the Mercy as well as the Virtue. So this gives you Vit and HP, this gives you defense and HP. HP is one of the most important stats, which is why we are picking this instead of like the defense purple feather, right? So this is going to be the optimal setup. As for your gold feather, you are going to go with Knight, and the reason is very simple. It gives you a lot of defense, and also it provides you with PV damage reductions, and on top of that, it is an extremely accessible feather because you can just obtain it from the diamond shop. And from the diamond shop itself, every single week I would just purchase everything, right? Knight's tier 1, I would purchase everything. You can see this is only the start of the week. I purchased 30 of this. Day, I also purchased it, but I'm going to touch on day later. So this is what you're going to start with. Plain and simple, 4 purple, right? You can see that the bonus here, right, the stats are not very good because I'm using a tier 2 feather. So for people that are unaware, the set bonus, right, is going to depend on the lowest feather that you have. If I were to just remove it, you can see that the HP is going to go up substantially. However, it's going to also get additional HP if you run a 4th purple feather that is at tier 9. So this is a max bonus that you can obtain. And then for the 3 purple 1 gold, you can see slightly lesser HP, but this is just a reference for you guys. You're going to see a lot of HP as well as huge amount of stats for very cheap amount, right? Everyone can do this, so this is the first step. Now for the next step of progression for your defensive feathers, I'm going to tell you that going for 4 gold 1 purple is going to be the best. However, do take note that the 4 purple 1 gold is going to last you super long until you change into this 4 gold 1 purple, and the reason is because upgrading this nature and the divine is going to take you so much time, and it's going to take you so much resources. And also, just for comparison's sake, right, you can see that this is at tier 1, right? You can compare the stats over here. It's 110 HP, 528 compared to this, right? If I were to just go back to my tier 0, right, tier 9 over here, if I remove this, right, 470, and then here it's also there's a space for you to put in extra feather, so already more HP, and also on top of that, your Justice is going to give you extra defense as well as physical attack and magical attack, which is why I say don't change too early, right? Wait until you are at least tier 3 with your divine and your nature, then you change it to over this set. This is when you are going to get slightly better stats compared to this one, instead of just like having worse stats or also having more gold feathers just to look better, right? Just to flex, not worth it. Alternatively, right, you can actually go for, if you're not interested in PvP, you can actually remove this divine tier. You can just focus on the nature. You can go for a 3 gold 2 purple, and then this one you can probably put Grace. You can continue putting your Grace feather over here. So this is going to be good for PvE because it does give you the PvE reduction additional stats, right? So as you upgrade it, then you can focus on getting the nature to higher tier instead of focusing on both divine and nature. But personally, I would think that I would go for 4 gold 1 purple subsequently, because this one, every time you upgrade, it gives you quite a lot of stats and a lot of HP, and HP is one of the main things that I'm looking for, which is why I'm going for 4 gold 1 purple. But like I said, it's not going to be easy. And then lastly, if you're looking for additional tankiness, I would say that although this is great, right, you can also consider going for order. How do you get order, you might ask? So over here you can see that if we were to go into the truth, it's actually a counterpart of the truth, right? So if you go to the feather shop over here, there is an order over here. Personally, I don't really recommend it. I would say that because the mixed feathers, right, these loose feathers are going to be quite scarce, I'd rather you just focus on having truth. But some people are diehard fans of tanking, so for that you can probably go for order, but personally wouldn't recommend it, because even for tanking builds, you still need to farm, you still need to do damage, so I don't think that is going to be worth it. So I would just go with this and then focus on the mixed truth on the attack feathers instead. But this is going to be the next step of progression, and for the last step of progression, of course, we are going to look to replace the Night as well as the Terra into Light and Dark. So that is going to be the super end game, Light, Dark, Nature tier plus Divine. And if you are really not interested in doing additional damage, you probably don't need Light here. You can just have Dark here, and then you can go with this Night Feather, or you can go with the Terra Feather, depending on whether you need HP or you need more PvE damage reduction. But I think for most people, you're going to want PvE damage reduction. So that is what I would go for. You can replace either one of this for Dark, or you can go with more damage with the Light Feather over here. But like I said, this is super end game. You probably wouldn't be able to reach this until they make it such that you, like the Taiwan server right now, you are able to get Light and Dark Feathers from various events. Even the Wishing Tree have Light and Dark Feathers as rewards, and also the Pouring Chest can let you redeem straight away Light and Dark Feathers using the draws that you get. But of course right now you can see that our server don't have such kind of things. I'm also hoping that they will go that direction for Taiwan server, just like Taiwan server, right, to give us more accessible Light and Dark Feathers, but not sure where the greed of a Ragnarok Origin Global is going to bring us. But this is just for reference, so this is going to be endgame for the defense feathers. So for the attack feathers itself, right, in fact, I would say that the first step is going to be 4 gold 1 purple, and a lot of people are going to challenge me on this to say that I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, because 4 gold is very hard to achieve, right? For some people, you might think that, hey, I shouldn't get 4 gold, but in fact, I'll tell you that 4 gold is the way to go. Even for the free-to-play like spenders, I'm going to say that this is your first step of progression, and the reason is extremely simple. It's not because of the PvP stats, guys. I don't care about PvP stats when you are in the early game, you are in the early parts of progression. The reason is because of ignore defense, because these gold feathers are going to give you 6 ignore defense at tier 1. You can see this, so this add together is 12 ignore defense. If you were to add it into all the sets, it's going to give you huge amounts of ignore defense. And if you don't believe that this is going to be good, let me just show you an example, right? So if I were to switch back to my usual feathers, right, you are going to see, so this one is going to be tier 9 Veiler. Okay, so right here you can see that I have this set of feathers, right? This is the non 4 gold 1 purple set, and I'm using it for a reason. I'm going to tell you why later. So right here you can see that my ignore defense is at 451. A lot of you are not going to get this amount of ignore defense because your feathers are not as good as me. Simple as that. However, I'm going to show you guys why the time and space is so important even at tier 1. So a lot of people have been asking me, how are you able to do so much damage to like the kobolds, right? Even though you claim that you are a light spender, right? And the reason is because I have ignore defense. So you can take a look first at the monster archive, right? We take a look at the monsters, especially those going up to level 80. They have ridiculous amounts of physical defense and magical defense. So right here you can see the physical defense for this X kobold is 427. Of course, if you were to click on different kobold, 529, and I have 451, which means that at this point I would be hitting 100% damage, so to speak. So here I have everything set up already. I have my cards, and honestly I don't even have my cards at the max potential, right? So this is just a Hydra illusion card, and this is going to be a Mandragora card. So this is going to not deal the max amount of damage, but I can now already deal with a converter. I'm using a converter. Look at this, bam, right? I'm going to cast everything, bam, 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 91k to 95k damage with Sturdy Strike. Okay guys, what you have seen previously when I first shown my build is 75k, but now I've already maximized. I can go to 95k per Sturdy Strike. And a lot of people claim that this is because I pay to win. That is not true. That is because of the effect of ignore defense. So I'm going to show you guys what happens if you don't have ignore defense, right? So right here, we are going to continue fighting this, right? 95k, okay? I'm just going to go in here and show you if I were to just remove one of my feathers, my day feathers, which provides me with 30 ignore defense, right? Just remove this, right, it's going to do roughly the same because I'm still at what, very close to it, right? So I'm still at 416, so very, very near. But what if I were to remove another feather? If I were to remove one more feather, right, look at this, another ignore defense minus 30 removed. Now I drop to 83k, guys, 83 to 86k, substantially 10%, more than 10%, I would say, reductions if I were to even remove one more feather. Look at this one more time, remove another feather, bam, it's down to 77k. So you can see this is the power of ignore defense, which is why I say that for majority of you in the early stages of the game, you need to obtain this ignore defense when you reach level 80, especially when you're starting on the old server, right? You're going to progress very fast, you're going to level very fast, but you think that the levels are all that matters. That is untrue. You do need your feathers to have ignore defense to deal good damage so that you can level smoothly, right? So that is why I recommend that everyone go for the 4 gold and 1 purple. The reason why I'm not using that is also because subsequently I'm going to transition into a build which is the Sacrifice Paladin, and Sacrifice Paladins ignore defense, the skill ignore defense, which means I don't need this at all. Hence, there's going to be an exception. For people that are using skills such as Gravitational Field, you probably don't need this. However, I'm going to say one more thing, right? If you only use Gravitational Field, that is totally fine, but we all know that mages also need to use other builds, right? They need to use Meteor Storms for MVP and stuff like that. So ignore defense is going to be key for most people. Unless, like me, you're going Sacrifice Paladin, you don't need, and that is also one of the reasons why ignore defense skills, right, they come with it naturally, is going to be extremely strong because they don't need you to invest in all this ignore defense. For the rest of the people that do not need the extra ignore defense, right, I would suggest your first step progression is going to go towards 2 gold and 3 purple. And the reason why is because if you were to go 4 purple, you would lose the PvE stats, which means that you don't get the PvE damage bonus extra, right? So this one is not going to be that good. And also on top of that, if you go for 2 gold, you're going to get some of the PvP damage bonus, which is why I prefer to go this one. As for this feather itself, you can either go for Justice or you can go for Grace. It depends on what you want. If you need HP, like your Sacrifice Paladin, you can probably go for the Grace. If you need defense, you can go for Justice. Defense is also quite good, to be honest. And then for the rest of this two, right, I would say just go for the stats that you need. It's either the Strength or Intel, and then also go for Dex. So this is going to be the first step progression for most people when it comes to the attack statue. Now for the next step of progression for people that need ignore defense, this is your current set, and from here you are going to want to replace Valor with the Mixed Truth. So this is going to come in because of the physical and magical damage increment. So you're just going to replace this with this. It's going to give you additional damage, and also you're going to replace the Sky with Light Feathers, and subsequently you're going to replace the Day Feathers with the Dark Feathers. So Light and Dark is going to replace both Sky and the Day tier. So this is for people that need ignore defense. For people that don't need ignore defense, your current set would probably look something like this, right, with the Grace. So it's either Grace, Valor with like Justice, so something like this. So this might be your current set. So from here on out, you still want to at least get the Time Feather. So if you're not interested in PvP, you definitely want to get the Time Feather still, because it does give you additional PvE damage bonus. So this is very important. So you'll be running 3 gold, 2 purple. But for if you're interested in PvP, of course you definitely want to add in also this Space Feather, right? So that you can get the PvP stats. You go to 4 gold, 1 purple, and then here you would change it to the Mixed Truth, just like the people that need ignore defense. And then you are going to replace out this Sky Feather, because you can see right here, right, this Sky Feather is hugely relevant only in ignore defense scenarios. The physical magical attack can be obtained quite easily, to be honest. So you remove this and then you add in the Light Feather, and then for this one you replace it, you put in with the Dark Feather as well. So that is the end game. The end game state is going to be the same, but the transition state is going to be slightly different based on what you need, right? So personally for me, right, just to share what I'm going to do, because I don't need this ignore defense, I'm just going to go with purples, and then I'm going to run the Grace so that I get additional HP as a Sacrifice Paladin. So depending on what stats you need, you can tweak it to your preference, but this is the general scope, right? Eventually everyone wants to go to 4 gold, 1 purple. Now that I've done talking about the feather builds, the progression, I'm going to talk about the priority, because priority is also very important so that you can reach the builds much easier. So my focus here is very simple. Diamond Shop, like I mentioned just now, day and night you definitely have to buy. As you can see, I'm already on tier 9, and I've just been buying this every single week, right? And and it's only 1.8k diamonds. Even if you don't have much diamonds, just buy it. All this additional stuff is really fluff, so try to focus on feathers. Is going to bring you the most benefits. Secondly, when it comes to other ways that you can obtain the day and night feathers, it's also going to come from your optional feathers over in the guild shop, contribution shop. So I buy out this every single week as well, and also I buy out all the purple optional feather chests. The reason is very simple, right? You might think that you have a lot of this, but you need this purple optional feathers not just to upgrade your feathers, but you also need them so that you are able to go to the feather shop. You are able to dismantle, right? To get this, you need to get the statue breakdown. And what I do is that I always break down the blue one. So for blue ones, I don't really need it. So one tap dismantle, get all the feathers. And then for the purple ones, right, I choose the ones that I don't need, and then I will just dismantle them. For the one that give defense as well, magic defense, I don't need this. I'm just going to dismantle this. So when I obtain all these feathers, right, I'm going to be able to craft the Sky, the Terra, as well as the Mixed Troop. So these are the three main focuses. However, this is only possible if you have extra feathers, right? So the buying out of the purple feathers is going to be relevant, because once you go to the higher tiers of the feathers, right? So as you can see right here, if I were to go to one of my normal feathers, you can see if I were to upgrade, I need 28 feathers to go to tier 10. So on top of that, to have extra feathers, you definitely need to obtain them from other sources, which, like I mentioned, you need to get it from this shop over here, right? The point shop and the guild shop over here. So buying out everything until a certain point whereby the purple feathers, they start to release more and more, then maybe I'll start buying. But for now, I feel that this is going to still be relevant, so definitely buy this out. As for the diamond shop itself, right, if you go into it, you can see that they do sell this. I don't really recommend, because from a diamond resource standpoint, right, you already spend a lot on this day and night feathers, and these purple feathers don't seem to be that worth it in my opinion. So I would rather spend it on other stuff if you have other spare diamonds. So just try to get it from the guild shop, guild contribution shop instead. And then the priority for the feathers to redeem, right, is going to also have certain strategy in my opinion. So like I mentioned, right, the most important thing is that ignore defense factor that you need for grinding. So if you're a class that need ignore defense, definitely prioritize changing for sky tiers, right? So the sky feathers is going to be the most important one, and then followed by your mixed truth, and then followed by your terra, because like I've mentioned, the ascension path or the progression path for the feathers is going to be focused more on 4 purple, 1 gold for the defensive one. So definitely you can spend a lot more on the sky instead of spending more on the terra, unless of course you need the HP, right? Because it does give a lot of HP. So this is also why I have mine at tier 5. So this is the main reason. And of course, mixed truth is going to be good regardless of what class you are. So this is going to come after sky if you don't need the defense feather, the terra feathers. And that about does it for this video, where I touch on the feather builds as well as a feather strategy when it comes to accumulating feathers and buying out feathers. I hope that you guys enjoyed it and also learned something from it. At the same time, I just want you guys to take note that this is a general path. You are going to know your class a lot better than me, so the specific stats you can definitely tweak around your feathers to suit it. So that is just what I want to say as a disclaimer. Also, if you're interested in seeing some of the upcoming Wishing Star gacha pools, definitely check out this video where I touch on it and translate it from Taiwan server. I'll see you guys over there. This is Corky Gachas, signing off.